Jason Kozelman, Joe Kilrain, and Charlie Pease. We live streaming. Yes, we are. We're on YouTube. So the report's got so if you're way out and can't see us, if you go to Big Mount Media Florida on Facebook, we will be covering this free live stream there, and of course we will get this out on our Democrat and Republican Welcome to our podcast that comes out every week as a special episode. So we have an audio recorded, we have a video recorded. I don't want to take up everyone's time right now. I want to explain the rules real quick. My co-host, also here, Cindy Banier. We will both be switching off, asking questions. Hopefully, we can get to all of them. Again, we're sorry we're late. We're going to give each candidate 3 minutes for an opening statement, 3 minutes for a closing statement, and 3 minutes per question. After everyone's answered their question, if anyone wants to respond, if they raise their hand, they'll get 1 minute to respond. We're going to moderate that just to make sure that doesn't go overboard, so we can ask all of our questions. So with that, we're going to start with Councilman Welsh with opening statements. And thank you all so much for being here.
Hi, thank you everyone for coming here tonight to the library. I just want to introduce myself. I'm the current council member, Robert Welsh. 4 years ago, I ran and you elected me, and I thank you for that. When I ran 4 years ago, I ran on 3 campaign platforms, one of them being Focus Smart Growth, one of them being the quality of life that we have here in Cape Coral, and the third one being fiscally responsible. And I want to tell you that tonight, I have delivered on all 3 of those. And I will share with you those experiences, whether through the questions tonight or in my closing statements. I just wanted to introduce myself to everyone here tonight and let you know that I am wanting to seek re-election because I don't believe that what I started to do in 2020 is done yet, and I want to continue doing that in the 4 years. Thank you.
Mr. Alden,
My name is Jason Kozelman. I'm no vertebrae in my back. I've been flying under the radar. I'm the low managing code one, and it's starting everything till the 4th. This was going to be a launching pad, so this is the first time I'm going to speak out to the public with flyers or anything like that. I appreciate everybody growing up here, showing up here, because I've been growing up here. When this library was first built, I came here in my 1st grade class. I was born in Fort Myers Hospital because the Cape Coral wasn't built. I've lived here my entire life. People ask the first question, why do you want to come here? Well, I look and I see my son and I want to make sure he has a safe place to grow up in and he can enjoy living here just like me. Whereas the average income is $72,000, but the average job only pays $37,000. The road problems, the over-regulation of ordinances on lawns and houses that just cost taxpayers money, that's the stuff I want to do. I am a fiscal constitutional conservative. Less government, less money in the hands of the people is better. The government is not good with money. So we take in the money, we help you out. If we lower your taxes, we can actually spend that dollar 6 times instead of taxing it to you. Now, there are other places where taxes would come in, but it wouldn't be anything that would affect you here. There's tons of ways to go at this. I'm a math guy, solid math, political science major. So I've been up in front of a crowd before, but I have to tell you, I've never been this nervous in my life because this is a huge project. He's has done a good job. This is the only man who voted against the horrible bill that they placed at the last minute to give themselves an extra $40,000 a year. The one man to stand up to it. I would look at that bill and try to see if we could get it wiped away. It's going to be hard to find 4 or 5 other people who are going to say, no, I don't want 40 grand a year. I'm a regular person, nothing special, but I can tell you, will always have my ear. I always listen. There's 2 things I've always done my entire life, and I never do. I'm not good at lying, period. I mean, not good at it. You can immediately tell. Second, I always keep my word. I've never made a promise that I couldn't keep. So if I tell you I'm going to do something, it will get done. If you ask me a question, I will give you the best answer to my knowledge with the truth coming out. So if anybody has any questions about stuff like that afterwards, feel free to ask me. And I really appreciate everybody showing up. Thank you.
Let me see, I make this, is this working?
Yeah.
Okay. My name is Joe Kilrain. I'm in the Cape about 20 years.
You don't have to hold it. Just-
Good?
Yes,
No, you don't have to hold it down. As long as it's you're fine.
Am I on now?
No, he was on. First time on?
not on. Yes, well,
Again, Joe Kilrain, been here for 3 years. Basically, I spent about 45 years in the industry prior, building chemical plants and refineries. I've dealt with big time budgets, over $20 billion, in excess of $1 billion, project portfolios in many billions, a lot larger than what the city has. I've been watching council for the last 15 years, and quite frankly, over this last year, I've become appalled at what's been going on in council based on a lot of things. Number one, I think that they've blown their credibility and squandered their trust. And I would take issue with what the other gentleman said about Mr. Welch not voting against the stipend. Mr. Welch voted against the consent agenda and he took the stipend. So I just want to correct that before we get going. I don't want anybody with the false impression that, the credibility of that statement with respect to not taking the stipend, it's a little bit like a Chinatown Louis Vuitton salesman, and it's certainly not credible. Just from a couple other key things, I'm not going to take the stipend, and I'm going to fight like heck to get all of the people advisors, all the resident advisors back in the committees. I can understand why we might want to dampen oversight, but I just don't think it's justified. The people have a right to be involved. The council right now has created such a distrust issue that we need to have a correction, and a major course correction. We have to make sure that the people are not forgotten. Right now, the only they are forgotten. We just have to stop that. From a platform standpoint, we got to resolve the trust issue first. We have bigger fish to fry. We got a hyper growth situation going on here. And unless we get infrastructure keeping pace with growth, we're in deep trouble. We have got some major subgroups on the infrastructure that are real issues. We got a water problem and it's going to eat our lunch if we don't deal with it. It's a major issue. It will shut the industry in the Cape down. We got secondary traffic here that's unbelievable. And that's all related to being able to prioritize what's right and get it done correctly. There are solutions to these things, but we have to start today to get those in place. I don't want to wear out my 3 minutes. How am I doing?
A little less than 30 seconds.
Okay, so just to close out, I'm a guy who brings a life of experience to the table. I've been through a lot of these battles. I know the city budget. I know the city operations. I know the policy issues. I can walk in day one and really start producing. I get things done. I'm a straight talker, and there's going to be no nonsense on there. I won't be intimidated. If you want somebody who's sitting on council, there's going to be a yes.
That's
man.
fine.
Don't pick me. Thank you.
But we do appreciate, I do like the applause, we like the applause, so if you do want to applause, feel free to applaud. But try to keep it brief so we can get to our questions, and Bobby, you will have a chance to respond to what Joe said in the first question as well, but now we'll go to Mr. Pease for his opening statement.
All right, good evening, everyone. First, I want to start, so on camera there, they can't see me at this point, so moving forward, I'll probably sit down. But I wanted to give everybody in the back a chance to hear me at the moment. I want to say thank you to Sean. I want to say thank you to Cindy, because it takes a lot to get the civic engagement and organize things like this. So thank you so much for bringing this group together. My name is Charlie Pease. I'm obviously running the Cape Coral City Council District 5. I'm in this race because I care about our city's future. We're at a point, as Mr. Kilrain mentioned, of hyper growth, and we're at a crossroads. We have to get it right. I look forward to diving into the issues. I respect my opponents, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of talk about the issues that were just mentioned. But I want to tell you a little bit more about myself in this introduction. I'm rooted in this community. I'm involved in this community, and I am a leader in this community today. I was born and raised here in Cape Coral. I went to Pelican Elementary. I went to Trafalgar Middle. I'm proud to say I graduated #1 in my class at Cape Coral High School. I moved away briefly for 5 years. I came back. I see one of my high school teachers over there from 1997. And they taught me biology. Another candidate, by the way, in this race, but not ours. My son is currently in first grade. He's going to be going in, well, he just finished first grade. He's going to be going into second grade. So I'm in this community because I'm going to be here for the next 50 plus years and for generations. I'm involved in the community. I sit on multiple nonprofit boards. I volunteer. In fact, tomorrow, I won't be wearing a political shirt, but I'll be volunteering at the beer tent for 4 hours at Red, White, and Boom to raise funds for the Cape Coral Museum of History. I am passionate about the history of Cape Coral. Not only will I work to get the future right, but I know the history. I can talk about the history forever and sell you a book from the History Museum all day long. I'm a leader in this community. I have fought, I've been an advocate. I was one of the leaders in the community who was highly involved in preventing a land use change from Parks and Recreation land use at the Hunters Run Golf Club, the historical Cape Coral Executive Golf Club that opened back in the 1960s, has been successful and continuously run as a Parks and Recreation land for the past 60 plus years. In March of 2023, before any of the other hot button issues arose, before JC Park was, which is a horrible idea, before that one came to the light of what's going to be happening there, before the Yacht Club building was torn down, a piece of our history, in March of 2023, we fought to prevent a land use change. We worked with the PR, we worked with the community, we were up until 2 a.m. I want to say thank you to Ms. Colleen Simon, who was a partner in that. And we prevented apartment complex from going in the middle of a neighborhood, right? A 30-acre neighborhood that would have been 10 four-story buildings. So I will fight for our green spaces, and I believe that being a conservative means conserving our green spaces. And lastly, as a leader in this community, I am the director of Cape Coral Technical College. It's the only post-secondary institution in Cape Coral. My passion for the past
And that's, I'm Charlie.
has been to bring blue-collar skill trades training programs to Cape Coral. We have a $25 million project on the docket. I will fight, I will work, and I will continue to do my best.
All right, if you can pass that over to Mr. Welsh. And I'll give out warnings going forward when you're at a minute left, just to make, yeah, this is gonna fit, well, we're realizing we can't really see us here. So Bobby, obviously, we're gonna talk about the stipend because that has been the number one topic. We've even said on our podcast, that's the one issue that's brought Democrats and Republicans together is opposition to that stipend. Bobby, as you mentioned, or as Jason mentioned, you were one of the people who voted against the stipend in the consent agenda, but you've received criticism, both for, why didn't you pull it from the consent item? Why, some people have accused you of voting no on it because you knew it was going to pass. And of course, even though you voted no on the stipend, you took the stipend. And so obviously, Mr. Colerain brought those up as issues. So I want to give you a chance to respond and detail your position on the stipend, as well. This is the question. This is how I'm wording the question at bottom. We're doing the 3 minute spot for him, and then we're doing 3 minutes down the board on everyone else's position on the stipend.
So as far as the stipend is concerned, as many of you all know, I was the only person who voted no against the stipend. Yes, it was on the consent agenda. Yes, as Mr. Colerain said, I am accepting the stipend, but I think that the real way that it should have been handled has been brought to the public. So as soon as the stipend passed, immediately, the very next week, the very next meeting, I brought up and received a second to work on total council compensation with the city attorney. And at that point, what I did is I polled 10 to 12 different communities in Florida to see what their compensation was. Brought back 3 different options for council for us to discuss at a committee of the whole meeting. And ultimately, there was not a consensus on council in bringing it forward so that we could get it on the ballot for this term. So I believe that I did everything I possibly could as a council member to get it to the public and get it to a vote for the voters. As far as not taking the stipend, I think that would be a disservice to my family to not accept it. But also, I'm doing the same work as other people taking it. So my goal was to get it on the ballot and get it in the hands of the public. And I did everything I could to do that, and I voted no.
All right, if you could pass it to Mr. Conti.
So, the question is, what is your position on the stipend? I know you went through it, looking under opening statement, that is the question, what is your position on the stipend? And if you want to, of course, respond to Bobby on that answer, you may feel free to do so. Bobby, of course, if you may be able to respond.
First, I am against the stipend. I think the way it was passed, so if shady late at night, nobody there, set meetings. It's hard for 7 people to say, no, we're not gonna take $70,000 or $36,000 and increase our salary from 40 to 70. But what needs to be done is a reflection on the size of the city. There's 225,000 people living in Cape Coral. We have a extremely populated Hispanic growth. We're at 25% Hispanic. We need to take that money that we have in the stipend to figure out an easy way, halfway between what the stipend is and what the salary is. Take the extra money and put it to use for something else, not somebody's profit. And if you have time and if you want to get something done, you will. If you think you're going to do something, you will. If you sit around and say, it's never going to pass, nothing gets done. You put forward out the energy of what you're going to take in. If you think you're going to get it passed, people will follow you. I think I can get this taken away, get it to where the council does have a pay increase over what we have, get some training for the people that we have, open up a whole new type of workspace. We could open up 20 businesses with that $70,000 a year. The ideas are endless on what you could do with that money. I believe Cape Coral has overfunded things. So there's areas where we can lower your taxes, land tax. They're putting limits on number of construction buildings that they can build. Why don't we put it, instead of put a limit on what can be built, why don't we put a tax on anything over a certain amount of buildings? That way, as they grow and bigger and more popular in our community, the pockets of us bigger, so they get higher up, they pay more in taxes. That way, it ends the discussion. It ends their discussion of too much is in the way of progress. But no, there's too many things we need to do with the stipend to get rid of it, and it's not in the pockets.
But turn it off, mechanic.
I'm sure right to you.
Basically, I'm not gonna take the stipend through the whole term, in there. I'm gonna work like hell to get it rescinded, or kill it in some other manner, and there's other ways to kill it. Mr. Welch, you're not getting away with what you said. You did not vote against the stipend, you voted against the consent agenda. You had the right to pull that consent agenda. Immediately in that meeting afterward, you didn't argue about the reason you claimed you dropped out of voting for the consent agenda was because you had problems with the procedure in which people were kicked out of the meeting and brought back into the meeting. That was the discussion that you had in that council meeting. The next week you brought forward, the next council meeting, you brought forward 3 opportunities, or the next month it was, and each of those opportunities put council in self-control of their salary. There was never a referendum involved in any of those that could have went to the public. I firmly believe that salary is something that the public has a right to speak on. And unless we want to change the charter through referendum, it shouldn't change from that. And basically, we're being specious in what we say. If we say that we brought it back to have a referendum, those referendums, with the trust of this council right now, you could give ice cream away to everyone in this city and no one's going to pass a referendum because of the distrust that's created. The council process was devious, and I still don't know how the attorney himself was able to create all those 4 or 5 resolutions, first taking away the advisors and all the non-statutory committees, then the statutory committee, CRA, setting precedent through that, and then going ahead and allowing that commission to be knocked off. We laid all 5 of those volunteers off, expanded it to 8 people, and then named council as commissioners, and then allowed to redefine stipend from what refunded expenses to a salary condition. And we try to parallel that with what Fort Myers did. Totally different situation. Fort Myers, by resolution, was able to do their salary by ordinance. They missed it one time and they went ahead and did it as a makeup. I don't know how our attorney, out of the clear blue sky, without violation of sunshine law, was able to put together all those resolutions. How did that occur? I would ask you, how did that occur? Who talked to the attorney to do that? I would like to have that.
30 seconds, Mr. Cohen.
Thank you.
Bobby, we'll give it a chance. You gonna say, Bobby,
Sean and Cindy, I don't know the structure here, but hopefully I won't go last every single time because my friend here, Mr. Killeen, and I agree on a lot of things, and he stole some of the things exactly that I will reiterate here. So please give me a chance to go down the line this way when we can. But I want to be crystal clear. First of all, I would like to say, Mr. Councilman said, that nobody was there. I was in the room the night of December 13th. I was in the room and I could not believe the way that this process went. And I also want to reiterate, no matter how you shake it, the vote of Mr. Welch or the way that he chose to vote no on a consent agenda item was strategic and intentional. And he watched the votes go down the line for people voting no. He knew it was voting yes. He knew that the consent agenda was going to pass. And he voted against 10 items, 10 other items. So for those who aren't paying close attention, those included, various items, maybe included grants or things for South Florida water management, right? You can't just vote no on all these items. So this vote on the record is no on all 10 of the other items that were on there for December 13th, right? He didn't go to the bathroom. In addition to that, he is taking the stipend, and he has that right to make that decision. But it is out there right now. The other council, there are certain other council members who are choosing not to take the stipend. So I want to be crystal clear on my answer. I will make a motion if the motion is needed, but I believe procedurally the stipend has to come back up at some point once there's a reorganization of the council. I will vote no. We will have 5 votes to vote no to end the stipend. I will not take the stipend at any point during my term, and I will work to change the charter so that no future council can change their own compensation in any way, shape, or form. I think that's critical. Can of worms that was opened up here is a huge problem. We need to change the city charter for the future and make sure that it does not happen again.
motion to respond? Yeah, 1 minute for a response.
So yes, I've been attacked by my 3 opponents, but what I have to say is that what I brought forward 2 months later was a charter amendment. The only way to fix this is through a charter referendum. We can't fix this any other way, and I brought forward different ways in order to try to make that happen. This will come up again in December to either be approved or not approved, and I will vote against it again in December. So my votes are against the stipend. So attacking me for taking the stipend or not taking the stipend, voting against it or voting against the consent agenda, I voted no. I will still vote no in December if reelected, and I will come forward again to try to fix this. Because the only way this can be fixed is 2 years from now at the next election. It's got to be done in the charter. So I can't really say much more other than I did as much as I could as 1 vote on council. You need 5. And that's 1 in being the only next time.
And Joe wants to respond as well? We have 1 minute.
The first point is all of those referendums you were talking about allowed council with self-control or sovereign. It was changing the charter to self-control by council. No good. We need to have a referendum that keeps people in the choice and deciding what council is going to get paid. They were all bogus referendum calls. The second thing is, you were asked in the next meeting why you didn't pull it off the consent agenda, and you gave an excuse that you were advised by council that since you voted no, you didn't have the opportunity or the right to pull it off the agenda. Now you tell me that you're not trying to eat your cake and have it both ways. It's ridiculous. And to the extent that you're trying to pull the wool over people's eyes is exactly what's wrong with council right now. Don't pay attention closely enough to what people are listening. People are very smart.
Hi, Mr. Conway. Mr. Pease, 1 minute, Mr. Conzelman, 1 minute, and then, we have to talk about something else. Oh, yes.
So very quickly, just to reiterate something and be crystal clear, there's only one time, or multiple times, depending on the council, the whole meetings, when there are public meetings that the council can talk about the items that they're going to vote on because of the sunshine law. And what they should have done, if anybody was genuinely against this, they should have separated it out from the other 10 items and had a discussion. But there was no discussion, and that is the telling tale right there. There was no discussion, so we know what the intention was for the outcome. So that should have happened on the council. I will be somebody who will sit up just like I'm here today, and I'll have conversation, right? The one thing that we see is just to go along all the time to get along. Now, I will get along. I'm a professional in the community, but I will be tough. I'll be a fighter, just like we were with Hunter's Run, just like I have been with other issues in the community. But at the end of the day, I'll be respectful, right? And I'm a fighter who at the end of the day can say, hey, you know what? Let's move on. We're professionals. But we need to have the discussion publicly because it's the only time that the city council is legally allowed to talk about the issues.
All right, and Mr. Conzelman?
The cut from the daggers going back and forth. I think anybody in the city can agree that the way it was done was bad, needs to be taken over. You can't really fix what had been done. What somebody's record was, you can't go back in time and say, I wish I would have done that. What we can do is get 4 members on the board, get it voted off, and then get it over. If you're arguing about who did what and how they did it, you're never gonna get anything done. And wasting time back and forth, that's what's the problem with the country today. Everybody's arguing back and forth. When I went to college, I took political courses. One of my teachers was the head of the Republican Party for Lee County. Another was the Democrat. They used to have lunch every day together, every day. Now, can you imagine a Democrat and a Republican having lunch with them, sitting down? So, what's good for the city is not that hard. It's easy to see what's good for
And then,
it's easy to fix.
I'm gonna have you pass it over to Mr. Pease. And then what?
So, to fully introduce myself, I am Dr. Cindy Banier, and I am one half of the Democrat and Republican walking to a bar. I'm the Democrat and quite notorious around here as being going down for the most part, but now I like you and agree that we need to have debate, and that's why Sean and I started this podcast to show that there can be a level of civility in this. The other thing that we didn't mention at the beginning, mostly because I was falling out front, is that this is actually brought to you today by a nonprofit organization called Save Our Democracy. It's a new 501c4 social welfare agency that is here in Southwest Florida working to promote voter and civic engagement around our community. And so Save Our Democracy is putting on this event. We're going to be putting on all of it in Big Mouth Media. We are the media sponsors for that. So we are putting it on all the Big Mouth Media Network. You'll find it on our website, our YouTube, all that kind of stuff, so that people in our community can be informed about their issues. So I just wanted to make that clear. And I'm going to jump into our next question. I'm going to make it spicy, but in a different way. So we know that here in the state of Florida, there's been a lot of culture war issues, particularly around identity of folks and what kind of place that may have in the public sphere. So here in Cape Coral, we have a very open and well-attended Pride event that happens in February. Pride Month is actually June, but they decided to do it in February in Cape Coral. Now, the city itself does not explicitly fund Cape Coral Pride. However, they do get some support in terms of security and things like that, that often looks like a line item of support to the organization. So my question to you is, What do you think about events like Pride Month in Pride in Cape Coral? And how does that fit into your vision for our city?
Thanks for the question. So I will always be somebody who is respectful and gets along with everybody, but I believe that city dollars should not fund organizations that have a specific mission or intent. I do believe that there is a place for different events as long as the organizations are paying out of their own pocket for those events, including paying for the security services. And so we'll have to make sure we take a close look at that. But I will always be respectful, and I will always do everything I can to encompass the entire community. I am a family values, a traditional guy. I have a family. But I respect people. I care about people, and I will always do what's best for everyone. And the last thing I'll say is when it comes to any sort of parade, we have to make sure that we have expectations in place for the types of behaviors that are occurring or the types of outfits and things like that. And so that's something that we need to make sure we pay attention to. And I will do the best I can to be inclusive, but I am a traditional conservative, and I'm not going to shy away from that.
I'm going to begin a little bit differently by giving a different type of pride. I forgot to mention my wife and my wonderful 4 daughters and grandchildren, which is the most valuable thing, most valuable event that ever occurred in my life, and the thing that I'm most proud of in my life. So that's my primary pride. But all sarcasm aside, basically, I strongly believe that government doesn't need to pick favorites in any way. Government funding should go for those things that support the government in general. We have to recognize and be tolerant of and accept those minority, whether it's pride issues, whether it's gender issues, whether it's race issues, no matter what, we have to be acceptive of that. The point is the majority does not rule in this country. The minority does not rule, the majority does. And we a lot of times try to placate things by saying we have to be equal. The point is the majority needs to be supported in their beliefs. We have to take care of not impugn the other minority efforts, no matter what they might be. I don't care if it's color, race, whatever. And there's a place for everyone in this community. There's a right for everyone in this community. We have to accept it, realize it, but we have to make sure that it's done in a proper manner, just as Charlie stated. We really need to police the type of behaviors that go on. I'm not trying to be a morality cop, but there are certain things that go beyond the pale, and we all know what they are. We don't have to describe them, but they're there. And you go around the sun enough times, you start getting a feel for what's right and what's wrong. And I came up from a good Christian the Matter of fact, I ended up being a Catholic and a Protestant for the first 15 of my years because my mother was Catholic, my mother was Protestant, my dad was Catholic. I had to go to two churches every Sunday. So, but basically, I have a good moral compass, and that's what I'm going to follow. And I think that those principles that government does has to be neutral on these kind of things. Thank you.
We have a growing city. This was actually the largest planned community built in the entire country. No other city was ever planned like this. It's also a great city with a great city. Does anybody know our city motto? I don't know. It's the city of superlatives. That means we do great things. So if we want to be great, we have to be accepted, but we don't have to pay for it. If they want to have a parade, they have to go by our guidelines. No nudity, no this, but we can be accepting and tolerant without offending them, and they can do the same to us. If not, they don't have to come here. It's that easy. This city's population is so diverse. I go to my son's elementary school. He's right there. He's playing on his phone. The same elementary school I went to in the same grade, and half his class, when they first got there from other countries, could not speak English and graduated speaking English and straight A's or, best award. And she'll tell you right now, she's a teacher at Skyline. She can do Charlie's one. There's a lot of children, from minority. So if we're gonna be accepting of those, we gotta be accepting of all. We can't exclude. But we can, make sure that nobody is gonna throw a parade like they have in New York City, right? This is not the community for that. But comforting upfront, we shouldn't provide money, but we can provide help. But we don't need to block out, Cape Coral's diversity, because that's how we've been growing over the last 20 years. If we cut out diversity, we're gonna cut out part of ourselves. Yeah, if our heart's not beating, we can't grow. So I'm not gonna sit here and beat up on what should have been done, but in terms of all the minorities, I went to a Catholic high school. I married a wife who is Jewish, and now I go to Kingsway. Yes. I've been in all churches. I believe in God and I believe in Adam and Eve, but I am accepting of Steve and Steve. If they want to hold hands, that's fine. But please, if we're at dinner, don't start kissing, you know.
Makes sense. You can end anytime too.
Okay. No, my point is, we can be acceptive of people like that. I'm going back to my comedy years. I used to do a lot of homosexual jokes.
Yes, exactly.
We can't stand my opinion. I am a hardcore conservative. So listen to me. Be supportive.
Can I change my suit?
It seems that, my debaters have gone off topic. Could you please repeat the question for me so I can address it?
So the question was about your thoughts and feelings about Cape Coral Pride and the role that the city should play.
So, when it comes to the city's role in Cape Coral Pride, I think a lot of people are misconstruing what the role of the CRA is in Cape Coral Pride. So the Community Development Agency is the one who actually sponsored Pride Parade, and that's completely separate from the city of Cape Coral. They're separate tax dollars, they're a separate entity, and they were one of the boards that one of my opponents was criticizing us for removing that board. That was the citizen input board that decided to donate those dollars to that parade. Now, as a city representative, I believe it's our responsibility as a city to provide protection at events like that. And the people who are going to provide that protection the best are our city police officers and our city workers that can provide barricades that we have, and we do. And whether or not it's a Pride event, if it's a veterans event, or any other religious event, I believe that as a city, we need to provide the best opportunity to whoever is putting on that event. And there are rules and regulations for that. And as a city council member, I have supported whoever wants to do that type of event. Whether you attend the event or not, I don't believe as a city council member, it is my decision to say you can go or don't go. But as a CRA member and being on the CRA board, we as a council have the decision if we want to use CRA dollars to support certain events. And I believe that we've had discussions and made those decisions as a CRA board in the correct way. You know, the CRA board also supports the Art Fest, which happens in January, yes, and they get the same amount of money to cover police coverage. The Art Fest is super attended by a lot of people. Pride might not be attended by as many, but why should one get the police protection and the other not? The whole thing is protecting the citizens of Cape Coral and allowing the best proper visit, you know, or the best proper event and utilizing our resources for that.
1 second. I just want to reiterate, because he said that some people misconstrued it and answered the question. So my last part of the answer to that question was that I do believe that we can be inclusive with city resources, but these organizations who are putting on these events need to pay for those resources, just like Just like when we run an event for the Cape Coral Museum of History, right, that we pay for the resources to be there.
Any additional?
I would also like to reiterate that it's important that we're fair in the way that we manage the money. And the money needs to go equally, and if we're charging one group for it, we need to charge all groups for it. We can't pick winners anytime, and it's bad business to do that. And basically, the CRA board right now, it's like this money comes as a gratis to the CA board. That's the people's money. Every penny, every bit of money that we spend from the tax base, it comes from the people. You're spending our money and you're doing it in a manner that's a little bit more cavalier than we would like to have it. And I think people should have a say in that. Thank you.
Bobby, I think wanted to.
Just a quick 5 seconds. That's all what I was trying to say. I wasn't trying to crack a joke, but no, we just limit the funding and put allow them in. We don't need to pay for them. That's just a waste of tax dollars. That was my point.
Yeah, so what I'm gonna say is the CRA has a budget and we go over the budget every year and there's an advertising budget set aside. And there's also only 2 times a year when people can petition the CRA for funding for services that is only used for city services such as police protection, roadway closures and things like that. So 2 times a year is brought forth before the commission and the commission decides. Now, there's only been 3 or 4 that have gone forward and submitted those applications. So if there's more people willing to submit those applications, then it would be easier for the board to decide yes or no on what it is. But it's in the budget. So unless you want to remove sponsorships from the budget of the CRA, which is very little, I think it's only a total of 50,000 a year.
That would be time on it. You're gonna pass it over to you to answer the next question, and if you wanna put it.
It's the question.
So, yes, so our next question is a question that I don't think is talked about enough, but I think it affects a lot of people, and Jason, you actually briefly, and that is permitting. And the amount of regulations we get told, you know, the word is that Cape Coral is a giant homeowners association. So what is their view on permitting? Do we have too much? Do you feel like we need to deregulate? And how would you streamline the permitting process? That I think it's a little bit better now, but I had some difficulty over the past year.
But before I get to that, let me just mention one thing. The cavalry attitude of being able to spend budget dollars is a government mentality. The government mentality is they think it's their money to spend. That budget that the CRA has is coming from the general fund, basically going to them, and it's coming from tax dollars. It's competitive with everything else. Money is fungible. And basically, it's not theirs to give away, it's the citizens' money that they're giving away, and they better do it accordingly. And that's the reason why we have runaway budgets, because we're not providing a correct oversight. Okay, now with respect to the permitting process, it's a debacle. And basically what happened was that they tried to automate the process, and the process was not up to speed. With the level of permitting we have here, we processed 5,000 new home permits each year over the last 4 or 5 years. We do about 30,000 new permits each year. It's a major bottleneck. Now, the reason that is because we didn't understand the program. It got implemented, tried to do it too quickly. We had a couple of reshuffles on it where we stopped it from operating totally. And you have people out there, and can you imagine a builder who has a lot of stuff on the ground, he's waiting for the next piece of the process, and he has to get re-permitted? It just kills his money, kills his budget. You're talking about hurting the industry and hurting business. That's what's happening. We're not out of the woods yet on it. We ought to be doing workarounds until we get that system going. And when I mean by workarounds, we get people involved, actual human beings involved again on the permits to work around whatever bottlenecks we have and show a little responsiveness to those kind of problems. It's doable and it's manpower, but you got to do it. And if we think that we're going to stop the building industry here, that is the industry of Cape Coral. Whether we like it or not, If we didn't have the building industry, we'd all be hurting. Every dollar spent over there on that is $7 driving our economy. Thank you.
Ditto to that, but I wanna reemphasize one of the points that Joe made. So the software program that they use now is called Energo, and it was put in place a couple years ago, and it was a debacle. It is a terrible program, and I think we need to talk to staff who actually use the program. We're throwing good money after bad at this point. I agree with bringing back in the human element, right? We need to look very closely at what all of our options are that are gonna be on the table. And additionally, we need to collaborate with the organizations, like Joe mentioned, the Cape Coral Construction Industry Association better. We need to talk to them, right? I heard recently that they're trying to put in another layer in the permitting process, MEP, which is mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, which the CCCIA is saying, we don't need this. This happens at the CO in the building process. So why in the world are we going to add another layer of permitting when we're already taking forever? And the last thing I'll say about Energov is that don't forget, the end user is the most important. In my day job, I tell my staff all the time, customer service, customer service, customer service, customer service. I preach it. Doesn't matter if you can't solve somebody's problem right then, get back to them and say, hey, I'll do my best for you. I'm gonna follow up, in 3 days, right? Let them know that you're working on their behalf. But with Energov, it's taking forever. So a roof permit might take, a month for the end user use, but it used to take 4 minutes. 4 minutes for staff to process a roof permit. Now it takes upwards of 45 minutes to process one permit with Energov. We need to solve that problem. The red tape, the regulation issues, I mean, it is a ridiculous situation, and we can solve that problem with common sense.
Thank you. I want to start out this one with asking the three gentlemen next to me, have any of you ever used Energov and gone through the process?
Yes.
Okay, because I have. I did it personally with a salon that my wife and I own. I went through Energov. I did it with development services, and I think they are doing the best they can. The E-Tracker program beforehand was a 30-year-old program, and at any time you need to make a switch, and you need to make a change. And I think that our staff in development services is doing as much as they can. Yes, could there be a change? Could there be updates? Could there be things that are different with Energov? Yes, but I don't think it is a throw it away and start something new, because then we're going to be in the same problem now.
The other question is there any permits you would cut and regulations like that?
So as far as permitting goes, and different things, as far as the city being known as the largest HOA, I actually sponsored in order to deregulate some of the permits, sponsored some things where it came to like driveway sizes that were smaller, only permitting for, sorry. Give me a second to recoup. I'm gonna pass it on to somebody.
Yeah, okay. I'll give you an extra minute to respond with the, yeah.
Give me a second to reset.
Yes, we'll give you 3 minutes and then we'll do both. People time to respond.
This is one of the topics that when started to run that everybody brought up. My father, God rest his soul, put a shed that he bought at Home Depot in his backyard. And he lived out in St. Charles Park. And they came and ticketed him. He needed to hire an architect to draw plans and then put it in and then have somebody else come out and certify it. And this was a plastic shed that literally was on the ground about 4 feet by 4 feet. Cape Coral has been that way. And the one thing that drives most people crazy is the laws are only enforced by people with the phones. The people who call, there'll be 6 other violations around, and the person who's getting reported on as one violation. He's like, well, look at all these other people. They have the same thing as me. Well, I didn't get a call from that. And I've had that happen to me personally, where I was called out and I was told, if you talk or say anything, you're going in handcuffs. I can't say that you broke the Third Amendment to come around and, it was just crazy. Police were called. They were called because we were shooting fireworks. I was picked out of a crowd of 50. But Cape Coral's government, if you look at it, I've seen people in the city in their cars driving around, sitting in there playing games on the computer. They're code enforcement. We can cut that completely back. Now, in terms of permitting, the less permits you have, the easier it goes. As long as safety goes first, that's the most important thing. I was a manager at Home Depot and Lowe's. I worked with, when I was under 17 people, 70, 170, always talking with the contractors when the business was up.
1 minute.
The hardest thing for them to do was waiting on permits, the hardest. So if we can cut code enforcement, we can take those people and then put them in permitting and have an entire faster system. I don't understand why things are slow, haven't been getting done, having to change. Home Depot had a program that they used. It was a DOS-based program from 1985. They still use that on their cash registers today because it's in their entire infrastructure. It would cost them $5 billion to fix it. So if something like that is in our system, we need to cut it out. We need to find
15
better
seconds.
ways if we can't cut it out. I'm not familiar with the program. I haven't had a permit in probably 15 years, but if we can't process it and run the program properly, let's find a better way to do it. I mean, I don't see why there's debate on that.
And that is time, Jason. I'm gonna we'll do Joe, then we'll do Bobby to give him a chance to re-respond, and then we'll do Charlie.
I think we're suffering in permitting, we're suffering in government a lot of times. People don't understand that the main job is being effective. And you work to be effective and be held accountable if you're not. In industry, I used to manage projects. I actually had a $7 billion portfolio at one time. And that portfolio required about 13 different disciplines and trades. And they all had their accountability to do the projects. If that program couldn't do it correctly, and the people understood that if they couldn't make it happen and make it work, then they were out the door. And we need some accountability. We need to have councilmen who have some understanding of how things go down. Not that they're just learning on the job about what a permitting program is. Basically, you have two primary focuses in industry on that. You got a work order system. You run a $1 billion refinery with a $1 billion throughput a day. You better understand how to process work orders. Those systems are applicable. It's not a topic of science or new AI program. Thank you.
If we could pass it to Bobby, we're gonna give it to Bobby, and then we'll go to Charlie.
So what I'm going to touch on before is that Cape Coral has seen tremendous growth. And what tremendous growth means, you're going to have issues in permitting. A lot of it, though, too, is the size of the department. So, and the size of the area in which the department operates from. And as we all know, City Hall was built, and development services and permitting department is just one tiny area. So, as I said earlier in my opening, results is what I'm coming here to tell you that I have provided as your council member. And results is, with me on council, we have purchased an additional building on Santa Barbara to move the entire development services division out of City Hall and into a new facility so that they can expand properly and grow with the city growth. And with that growth of the development services division will also mean faster permitting, faster times, and better.
And then that'll be time. And as we're passing, we'll pass it to Charlie real quick. I do want to say we did not establish a rule on use of mobile phones during the debate. So I would very much ask.
You have a
We would, that was, I'm so sorry. This is something that we didn't anticipate, and so this was noticed, and I just want to make sure people know that we weren't aware, and that is on our end, so I apologize for the, we'll make sure that's clear in rules going forward. Understood, we just wanted to make sure he doesn't, want to make sure. Yeah. Well, I do, we want to make sure, we want to make sure these candidates aren't cheating, so I would just.
The permitting topic here, one thing, just to, because Mr. Welch just brought it up, so the new building, I think there are going to be challenges with that new building, especially with parking that was not foreseen. For those who don't know, they actually purchased the charter school building that's on Santa Cruz Boulevard near the smoothie place. And that charter school is closing, and there is not enough parking there. And so the city's gonna have to acquire several parcels at some point to fit all of the development services vehicles there, which was something that we should have definitely thought about ahead of time. The last thing I'll say, because it came up related to supporting the staff. I will always support the staff. It's not about support for the staff. I'm a people first person. We need to get the right resources there, and we need to support the people with the right resources.
Just along that line, just one comment. Basically, if you want to produce accountability, you have people report out. And one mechanism to do that is have the city manager report each month what his permit status is and make him accountable to produce and improve that. That's it. He works for council.
Okay.
So this will, because we are coming to time here, this will be the last official question for this evening ahead of I'm gonna say a 30-second wrap. Okay, 30-second at the end. So you're still gonna have your regular 3 minutes for this question. So the other thing that really brought Democrats and Republicans together here in the city of Cape Town was J.C. Park. Through the creation of civic action that just warmed my little heart. So here's the question. What is your opinion on the plans for J.C. Park, and what would you have done differently in the decision process had you been on council? Let's start with Jason.
First of all, my son and I have been to every park, and JC Park is amazing. So I would think when I was a kid, I used to go there and play, literally live walking distance away. The parks around have all been improved. In terms of what would we done different? Well, when we refer to parks around where I live, in my area, my district have been improved. There's three of the four in the area have been put on hold for the summer and rebuilt, and they're all exceptionally nice, basketball courts, everything. I knew Joe Stones. He was one of the head guys in the county and one of the nicest guys. And he once told me, he's like, never get into politics. He goes, get on the side that gets paid for people in politics. So I'm going against his wishes, but on the parts, I would say that the way it came together was fine. I didn't want anybody to disagree unless it went over budget. I think you were under budget on that, were you? On JC Park? If somebody can fact check me, it's a big lie, yes. But that's the way you get it done. If you have Democrats, Republicans coming together, you get things done. Now everybody's talking about money being spent, taxpayers' dollars, taxpayers pick representative who best suits their beliefs to spend their money. So you're gonna pick somebody, one of these four people, who you think is gonna spend your money the best. I don't want to spend money unless I have to, just like you. Well, thank God. But when it comes to city improvements that will increase the city's value, that's an investment we should make, investing in the future. Because right now, the city has laws that are based from 40 years ago.
1 minute. Sorry.
Well, the city, no, the city has laws and regulations. There we go. Like this. The city has laws and regulations that are 40 years old. We need to go back and come through that, get rid of all the red tape. That's why you won't need Republicans and Democrats coming together. You will have the citizens coming together to make things better. It's not going to be easy because this is a huge. It's a huge city, but being able to work with the community and the people that you represent is the best part of this job. That's what I'm looking forward to. Off question, I know. The last thing I want to say is the city has done a great job with building parks, but they need to do it better and faster because the city's growing much faster rate.
Next, and then we're gonna get this one over to Charlie.
Are we answering a question right now, not giving closing part?
No, this is-
it's a question about,
Is it a comment or a question, and then we'll close it?
And potentially business in the holler at me. Oh, for sure. So it was that one of the big issues that had brought a lot of people together around the city was JC and the planned renovations of the park in opposition to those renovations. And you were on council, so the question was, if you were there, what would you have done differently? And you can respond as to why it is that you've felt to have voted the way that you did and why potentially there needs to be renovations in the park.
So far, all I voted on is plans, not the actual renovation of the park. So as many people know, it takes more than just a yes vote to get something moving in the city. It takes years of planning. It takes money, budgeting, yes. It also takes public outreach. And that's the phase that we're in right now. So a lot of people are, and I agree with JC Park people that are against it. There are a lot of things I was against that were in the original plan. I was against any sort of alcohol being in the park. I was against removing certain items from the park. What I was for though, and when the plans came through, and what I personally lobbied for was increased sizes in pavilions. I wanted to increase the tree calipers of the new trees that we're putting in. There's ways to enhance a park and update a park that are good for the community. And yes, the initial plan that came out was fought with opposition. And before the final plan is done, I hope as council, we can create that community discussion and come up with something that everyone's happy with before we actually go to build the park. Thank you.
And as Charlie.
Thank you. I have a lot to say on JC Park and Parks and Recreation. So the first thing that I will say is that when this first came to the light back in May of 2023, I was there in the council chambers and I stood with the folks who came out to voice their opinions against the commercialization of JC Park. And to this day, I still stand fully against the commercialization of JC Park. I am incredibly grateful for the work the community does through volunteerism to shine a spotlight. You can watch the news tonight and there will be a spotlight on some things happening out of JC Park. I will also say that I am the only candidate in this race, and I believe any race, who has a demonstrated record of conserving our green spaces and parks and recreation. I mentioned earlier when we fought against the land use change at Hunter's Run and the developer ultimately did not proceed. We formed a group called Keep Our Parks and Rec, Cape Coral, Florida. We have a website, keepourparksandrec.com. And our mission, when we formed it, myself and Colleen Simon and one other person, was to support the preservation of green spaces and parks and recreation land improvements throughout Cape Coral until the end of time, until I'm gone from here in 50 plus years, hopefully, God willing. And so I will continue to fight for our parks and recreation. Now, I am certainly not one of the leaders with the J.C. Park issue, but I will stand with them. I will vote with them. I will make a motion on day one to stop all work on J.C. Park until further notice. If this property was 30 acres or 40 acres on the waterfront, I would say we have a responsibility to do something great for our entire community. But this is a small 8-acre park, 9 acres, depending on who you talk to, but I'd say it's probably 8 or 9 acres. And it is well utilized. And it just doesn't make sense. At some point, you have to be willing to change your mind. And I am somebody who will listen to the information. I will change my mind if the information comes forth that makes sense to change my mind. And the last thing I'll say is, I don't know how much time I have left here. Okay, but right now we don't know what we don't know. Because there is a P3 proposal on the table that's being discussed behind the scenes. Hopefully that is, doesn't move forward and the next council has a say in what happens at J.C. Park. But when that P3 came forward, what happened was that triggered the city to then put this out to bid. They did it for the regular minimum amount of time and nobody else bid on the project. And so now they are negotiating with this entity who wants to commercialize the park. This is going to be a $20+ million project. We need to stop that. And I wouldn't even have negotiated with the P3 proposal because the statute requires it to be in the best interest of the public. And we could have just shut it down by saying, all right, we don't want to move forward and negotiate.
That's time.
I reiterate a lot of things Charlie said on the P3. Basically, I wasn't running for council way back when, but I was part of the J.C. Park thing from the early stages of J.C. Park. And I support all of the efforts and the work that those people have done. They've done a miraculous job in pulling a grassroots movement together, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. And I'll share something with you. What happened over this weekend, in which they were trying to honor our veterans and our first responders by putting yellow ribbons on the tree and naming them in the honor of our veterans. And to have someone from the city come out on Monday and to tear them down without notice with police escort is abominable. And it should never have happened. And about P3, what Charlie says is very important. The first test of a P3 is it in the best interest of the public? That's a policy decision. Not one penny should be spent on any P3 project unless that policy question is discussed first. You don't have to put any kind of cone of silence over it. You need to have that discussion first. That never occurred on this P3 that came in. All of a sudden, we accept the P3. I stood up in council and brought this point to their attention. I had an attorney follow me and echoed exactly what I said. The point being is, though, the attorney later on in public said that that is incorrect. I was interpreting the statute wrong. I went up to him in the break. He admitted to me that I was correct, but he wouldn't do it in public. And he said, well, we only have one staff member on. I told him, if you spend 10 cents on it, you have the crooked opportunity. You shouldn't have done it. You should not have spent one penny until we evaluated whether it's in the public. Okay. The other thing is that I think there's 7,000 people in these petitions. Now, they may not be all valid taxpayers and residents and that type of thing, but I guarantee you there's probably 5,000 at least on that petition. How many? 7,800. And these are the guys that blood, sweat, tears all for a whole darn year now. And what happens? They get a slap in the face by council. The distrust that council has echoed throughout this particular project is exactly what's wrong with the city right now. No one's paying attention to the residents, and we go off on all these tangents. The footprint that is being developed right now for J.C. Park is very similar to when we were going to buy the golf club from Ryan Properties. Tom, you remember that stuff? And that was many years ago, and that we didn't pursue that. Someone else has this on their agenda, and council doesn't have the gumption to bat it down. They allowed the city bureaucracy to move it forward. It's terrible. They've got a champion inside the city trying to fight it, and no one has the guts to pull it back.
That is fine. I think that the flashing light of the librarian is telling us we have to get out. So I don't think we're gonna be able to do closing statements, but we'll do quick closing.
They can come and throw me out. Just give me a quick 30-second response to that.
I would like to do a 30-second response to what my opponent Charlie had said. I was there with him when we were opposing changing the green space of Hunter's Run Golf Course to apartment complexes. I was there, I was at that meeting, and I stood up and told everyone there I was against it. I voted against it. Like I said, results and my votes are what you can count on. There's 3 people up here next to me who have not voted on the dais where I had. So you can go back and at that, and I did vote with his save green space, and I am a proponent for saving green space. Thank you.
Go on 10 seconds.
Go ahead. No, Charlie, real quick, in 10 seconds, and then Charlie, you can start.
So yeah, first I want to thank Mr. Welsh for changing his mind. I'll never forget the conversation I had when I called him and he called me back and he said, oh, well, what about putting like townhomes out there and so, something like that. And I said, this is literally what I said, 'cause I'll never forget where I was sitting. It was in my car in Immokalee. I said, Mr. Welsh, if you vote to change our land use from parks and recreation to multifamily, you will lose thousands of votes, and I would guarantee it. And he then graciously listened and engaged in the conversation. And we had a meeting at a church, New Hope Church on Nicholas Park, where we brought 300 people within a week. And he was gracious enough to come out there for that meeting. And he changed his mind at that meeting because of the fight that we put forth.
He having no experience within a board. I've sat on boards of $20 billion companies, Mr. Welsh. I know what it's all about. I know how to bring consensus. I know how it is to be transparent and tell the truth. You go to jail in a private enterprise if you don't tell the truth. You go to jail. And that's what ought to happen when you do it in a public enterprise too. Thank you.
Thank you for closing statements,
I'll go.
and try to keep it under.
Okay.
30 seconds.
Yeah, we're gonna do 30 seconds, unfortunately. I'm sorry.
I have been in between some daggers thrown back and forth. I would like to first thank everybody to come. Everybody, there's been some good points said. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know better than a lawyer. So if a city lawyer tells me this is what it is, and the public tells me something else, I'm gonna listen to both. But I'm not a lawyer. I can't make up decisions that way. I'm gonna go with what the people do. That's what you're elected to do. I was a VP of customer service for Home Depot in Southeast region. That meant that every time somebody got a complaint, it came to me. So if you were in Home Depot in the last 20 years and you had a complaint, I heard about it. That was my job, is to make sure customers were taken care of. Most of the customers were construction companies. I have experience with big companies. I have experience with customer service and people. I can lead this board, not back from the arguing of where it was, but to the future of putting everything together, putting our differences aside and making this a better place for our children to live.
Joe always wants to go last. This is a good man. All of these guys. I want to be crystal clear, and hopefully this doesn't kind of like 30 seconds, but I want to thank my opponents, and I respect them for engaging in the community and being part of this, because it takes a lot, and there are some daggers out there, but at the end of the day, I'm going to walk away from here and I'll shake everybody's hand. I will be professional. And to that end, I am somebody who will lead with toughness, with tact, and with professionalism. I'll shake your hand at the end of the day and I'll move on to the next issue, right? But I also am somebody who I believe represents the future here in Cape Coral, right? You have a choice right now, I think, between the past, the present, and maybe the future. I hope that you'll choose me to represent the future, but also represent everyone here in the city. And finally, I just want to say thank you to all of you for coming out and engaging here because this is an awesome setting. And thank you to the library. So thank you.
So I know your lack of experience. Basically, I am the guy that is pretty darn seasoned up here. And I bring a lot of life experience to the table and a lot of diversified skills. A lot of my background is the mainstream of our issues right now. A water problem, I'm an expert in water. I'm an expert on geostructures. I'm an expert on construction. I'm an expert in a lot of areas. We talked about 20 bridges being in peril right now, not necessarily structural peril, obsoleteness. There's a lot of new building techniques. I'm a materials expert. I understand that. I don't have to go through the learning curve and second guess the city on it. I look for those experts and I'll challenge those experts. I'm not afraid to challenge. And I'm a little bit more of a street fighter than Charlie is. I think you can see. And I don't want to be a street fighter because sometimes that's what it takes. I'm not worried about the wine and cheese after the council meeting. I'm worried about what's doing right for the residents of this city. I know.
I'm just gonna walk out limping and hope that they give some sympathy out.
Again, I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight and also those of you who are watching. But what I want to say is results. What you have with me is results. Things that I campaigned for 4 years ago, I can bring that to you. One of those things were the 7 islands. That's now being under construction. One of the things that was a hot topic 4 years ago was the Chiquita Lot. That has now been approved to be removed. Another one is green space. Very soon, I can't talk much about it, but the old golf club was a very hot topic. I believe that before November, that that might be resolved. There's going to be some talk amongst council that we have to do budgetary for that, but there are a lot of things that are out there now 4 years ago that were the hot topics.
10 seconds.
That are getting completed, and that's what I can do as your council member, is get things done. Thank you.
Sacred democracy. We appreciate you coming. Make sure you're registered to vote and you show up August 20th, right? This is August 20th, guys. Thank you so much for that.
Again, thank you so much, everyone, and for your patience. We're gonna say, where is this?
Talking about the court behind closed doors.
Please don't speak to everyone. And do so. Either.